Welcome to Resort Trades Learning Center. And thank you for joining us. I'm Sharon Scott Wilson, publisher of the timeshare industry's only monthly print publication, media with the most frequently updated website and weekly e-newsletter, in exclusively focusing on the timeshare industry. And speaking of exclusively, we are honored to have the opportunity today to interview the former CEO of the timeshare leader Diamond Resorts, the charismatic Mike Flaskey. He's now founder and CEO of Mike Flaskey Entertainment. And I bravely requested this interview, Mike's first public engagement since the Hilton acquisition of Diamond Resorts. And Mike graciously accepted. Thank you.
Oh, you're most welcome. It's an honor. And thank you for all that you've done for our industry through the years.
Oh, well, thank you. Mike, if you would share your thoughts about the consolidation of the industry. Been quite a lot of it from prior and ongoing.
Sure. Well, I don't know how far back, you'd like me to go, but, I'll take a second and talk about Diamond Resorts. We had a very key strategy in the, M&A world as it related to rolling up the industry. And Diamond Resorts was one of the few companies that had access to capital coming out of the 2008, 2009 Great Recession. And because of that and the partnership that we had with Guggenheim, we were able to go out and make 11 merger and acquisition transactions during my tenure, at Diamond Resorts, which ultimately took the company from a couple $100 million a year revenue company up to just north of 1.4 billion. And so merger and acquisitions, I think in our industry is nothing new. If you look out there, you look at the other players in the industry more recently, you have to tip your hat to what Marriott Vacations has done. They first acquired Starwood Vacation Ownership, and then they came back and acquired Welk, two strategic acquisitions for them. Obviously, Hilton Grand Vacations acquired Diamond Resorts, which, I was involved in that trade, which was in August of 2021. And, while it's gotten more constricted at the top, I think there are some key players out there right now that have a lot of eyeballs on them to do a deal. They haven't really done deals. And so it'll be interesting to see what plays out in 2023.
It's funny. A few years ago, I wrote an article about quoting from Arda's Developments magazine. Someone had said, or actually it was one of their speakers at an Arda convention, someone had said eventually there'll be only really 3 companies. And Howard Nussbaum called me and fussed at me a little bit for publishing this because, of course, that has a lot of reflection in the marketplace. So I got in trouble for that.
Yeah, I'm not sure that that it'll ever get to 3 because there's some companies out there that are better off to be private. They really don't need to be publicly traded, and they probably don't integrate well, into the regulatory environment that is set up around a publicly traded company. So I think we'll always have, a handful of private companies out there, and I also think that's good for competition as well.
Yeah, absolutely. How will experiences play into the future of marketing? Because, and let me back up a little bit for viewers who might not be acquainted with your history at Diamond. You were so successful at introducing experiential offerings. You had that Diamond Live concert series. I wanted to go so bad to see Cole Swindell. And then you had the Events of a Lifetime series where resort members could race go-karts with the Daytona 500 winner, Michael Waltrip. That was a few years ago. And of course, your Major League Baseball spring training with Yankees legend Reggie Jackson. And I did get to attend your Diamond Resorts Tournament of Champions one year, which is that pro celebrity golf tournament where you have professionals playing against celebrities. At any rate, I guess you're going to be continuing that effort in your new endeavors.
Yeah. So, I think your question was, how are experiences going to kind of play out into the future for the industry, correct? So look, I think that it's very clear that experiences are here to stay, not just in the, timeshare vacation ownership space, but, in hospitality and businesses in general. We at Diamond Resorts, again, to give a little self-reflection, we had to be different. We had to be better, and we had to create and innovate because we didn't have a Marriott brand or a Hilton brand. So what we did was we decided that we were going to be a first mover in the experience world as it related to vacation ownership. And then as you highlighted in some of your lead-in remarks, it was incredible. I mean, we started out, with music and baseball and the NFL and golf and all of it together. We ended up doing about 3,000 of these unique special events in 2019 before we went into the COVID world. And Mark Wang, the CEO of Hilton Grand Vacations, has said publicly as recent as last week that was one of the key reasons why they had an interest in acquiring Diamond Resorts, because we had already scaled that. And we had a proof of concept that was there. And it's interesting because so many people in the timeshare space are still stuck in the old mentality of worrying about what a tour costs, as if they have a finite amount of money to go out and spend on marketing and leads. And in reality, it's that really doesn't have anything to do with it. What you're really looking at is you're looking at how many margin dollars you can generate. So for example, if a customer is normally a member that tours and they have a $5,000 VPG and they go see Cole Swindell, and then after they tour the next day, because that event gets in the peak emotional state, now, all of a sudden that's a $15,000 VPG. Well, just because your tour cost went from $250 to $1,000 a tour really doesn't mean anything, because you may even give up a little bit on the margin. But what you're looking for is that 3 times greater volume per guest is going to drive so many more dollars to the bottom line. In a publicly traded company, the way that they're evaluated is they're evaluated on a multiple of their EBITDA, and that turns into EBITDA. So when people started to realize that, and they started to say, oh boy, it really doesn't matter as long as we're getting the VPG lift and we're getting the margin dollars, we're increasing the market capitalization of our company, people started jumping on it. Recently I've seen Holiday Inn Vacations come out on social media. I think I've seen Blue Green do some things, test some things. And the reality of it is they're all going to have to do it, because we as a private company at Diamond, we did it because we did it out of necessity. Well, now that a publicly traded company in HGV has not only acquired Diamond, but gone out and said that was the primary reason why they wanted to acquire the company. Well, now you've got all of the buy-side analysts and all of the investors that invest in the public companies that are asking everybody, hey, why are you not doing this? So it's absolutely the way of the future.
Well, it makes so much sense because, and I think you hit on it when you mentioned the emotional bump that people get after attending one of your events. And that's something that financial people may lose track of because they don't always have marketing heads on them. But
they don't lose track of a 3 times greater VPG. I can
know.
and that's what comes from that peak emotional state. But the best part, Sharon, about it, and Mark Wang, has shared this with me as well, and he's starting to see it now. When you sit in the role as CEO of a company, you get the good, the bad, and the ugly, and usually when things boil up to you, there are problems. But because of this events of a lifetime, we called it, and Mark has rebranded it HGV Ultimate Access. Not only are you seeing 3 times greater VPGs than you normally would see, but you're also, the CEOs and the customer service people are getting letters from members thanking them, saying this is the greatest thing we've ever seen. We had no idea we were going to get to come on vacation and see Lee Bryce. Now our grandkids want to come with us. We couldn't get our grandkids to travel with us. This is the coolest thing ever. So they're thanking you literally for buying more. That's a pretty good trade.
Well, it's the word experiential just says it all. It really makes for a greater memory of your vacation. What is the outlook for public company performance? And I think you touched on this a bit, but as public companies, I think there's going to be a greater uptick in interest in timeshare than ever before. Don't you agree?
Well, let me first say that all these opinions are my own. And, before I comment on this, I think it's important for the audience to know that I have not been a part of Hilton Grand Vacations since August of 2021. So I have no insight into how their business is performing other than any other, investor that, sees the earnings call. But I do follow very closely all of the publicly traded companies. And yes, I think there's tremendous upside. I mean, at year end 2022, travel and leisure was down 36% year to date, and Marriott was down 21% year to date, and everybody else kind of fell in the middle there. But I will say, over the last really 2 or 3 weeks, there's been an extremely nice bump in the publicly traded company stock. I think that the markets were taking notice that, that maybe they were, oversold. And fundamentally, look, the business has never been in a better position than it's in today. As I said in some of our, sound bites to promote the show, only 6% of the eligible households own this product. So you have a marketing universe of 94% of the, people in the United States that qualify that haven't bought the product yet. And that really is a key driver. But more importantly, people pay a maintenance fee. This is a prepaid subscription. So therefore, they're going to use it. And the publicly traded company CEOs, in their last earnings calls, every one of them gave a little snapshot into the bookings out into 2023. And they were all extremely positive because, everybody's wringing their hands about a potential recession in 2023. And look, let's be clear. I mean, these analysts and these investors, if they go and side with whatever the analysts are saying at the macro level, they can really never be wrong. But the fact is that we have to do a better job as leaders in our industry. ARDA has to do a better job, as, the role they serve in, at getting the good word out and being able to, through data, quantify why, timeshare is still going to be a great investment to investors out into 23, 24, whether we get into recessionary times or not, because all you got to do is look back historically, whether it was 91, whether it was 9/11, whether it was the Great Recession, or whether it was COVID. And every time our product has bounced back significantly quicker than the general hospitality industry has, which really brings me to the second part, of answering your question. The companies have to go perform, but if you go and you talk to, the investment community, which I get hired all the time by these investors to look at their models based on how they have it underwritten and based on their forecasts of what they believe these stocks are going to do going forward, all based on public information, you quickly realize that there's 2 parts to it. Well, the company's got to continue to perform, but there's also this opportunity for what they call multiple expansion. If you look at the timeshare industry traditionally compared to the hotel industry, it trades at about half of what the hotel industry trades at from a multiple, and that's got to change. And that's only going to change if these CEOs get out there, get on TV, get out to these fireside chats and tell the story. And the other piece of it is that it's a little bit of a closed sector. And what I mean by that is there's not a ton of investors that play in the timeshare space. There's way more that play on the hospitality side. And so we got to get more institutional investors in. We've got to do a better job as an industry of telling our story. And as we do that, and as these CEOs do that, I think you'll not only start to see the stock rise because we know they're going to perform, but I think you're also going to see it rise because of multiple expansion. And frankly, that's like free money.
Absolutely. Well, I think the rating agencies, maybe we need to present a Cole Swindell event for them. Wake them up.
They don't think like that.
Oh, well, okay. Branded companies versus non-branded. How did you approach this at Diamond?
I talked a little bit about it earlier, the difference in the branded companies and the non-branded companies. And, it really starts, with credibility on the sales table, as basic as that sounds. And then it moves quickly into lead generation, being able to tap into the parent hotel companies' Hilton Honors program or the Marriott Rewards program, Starwood's SPG program, if it still exists. But I mean, this is where, these companies have a huge advantage in generating new buyer leads. At Diamond, we really didn't have that. We had to kind of do it the old fashioned way. We had to go out and we had to sell packages and generate, mini vacations, 4 day, 3 nights. We had to go out and we had to identify OPC locations that, were cost effective. And we went at this from a new member standpoint in a very traditional fashion. On the member side, I'm proud to say we were the most innovative out there. We had the highest VPGs in the industry on the member side. And it was because, we created an infrastructure and we had no choice around kind of a gold, silver, platinum level. And we continuously changed the features and benefits and improved them as we changed them for people that may be considering upgrading. And it was something that we spent a lot of time and a lot of energy on because it was really what we had to have that set us apart, which is where the events of a lifetime, was born and where we kind of got into, the whole experiential world. From a financial perspective, look, you could make the argument all day long that, Diamond, we didn't have to send $100 million a year to Mothership Hilton or Mothership Marriott that they pay, in these licensing fees. And so in our case, we would reinvest that into mergers and acquisitions. We would reinvest that into creative marketing and those sorts of things. And I think having that flexibility helped us, kind of as a key innovator. But overall, I am a believer that the brand does make a difference. There's no denying on the new member side that the branded companies have a distinct advantage at generating leads over, the non-branded companies. But all in all, and as we talked about in one of your earlier questions, I do think there's always going to be a place for a privately run company, a non-branded company in this space. And I think that it's good. I think it's healthy. I think it keeps things competitive out there. And I think, frankly, there are some very good private companies out there.
Yes. Which brings to mind Capital Vacations. I did see the other day your son was successful having his first sale. Congratulations. You must be very proud.
Oh, yes, indeed I am. That's funny you bring that up. Yes, my son has chosen our industry. How cool! And I couldn't be more proud of him. he went and got his real estate license, and he's recently turned 20 years old, and he felt like he wanted to go to work and follow in my footsteps. And I couldn't be more proud of him. And I'm incredibly thankful for the fine people over at Capital Vacations. They put together a mentorship program for him where he's in there kind of learning every different facet of the business versus just jumping straight on the sales line. And he has now, interestingly, migrated over to the front line and has made a decision that that's where he wants to be long term. So yeah, he did good, and I'm proud of him. He's got a long ways to go, but I like the effort and the commitment. And if he continues to do as well as he has done, I think the sky's the limit.
Is the state of the third party exit disruption in the industry? I know you've been very active along those lines.
How long do we have? Look, I'll try to make it as succinct as possible. I saw this as a real opportunity while I was CEO at Diamond. We were able to quantify very clearly the impact that these operations were having on our business, the negative impact. In fact, at one point, it was $100 million a year EBITDA hit based on, our cancellations and our defaults in our portfolio. And so I just decided I was not going to sit back and not fight back. And, I think it's pretty well written that, during my tenure at Diamond, we went at those companies pretty hard. And, we used education to educate our members. We used education to educate our team members. But unfortunately, we also had to use litigation to protect our business. And, when I sold the company to Hilton, we had filed 13 different specific plaintiff lawsuits against these third-party exit companies. And when I left, I think 11 of them we had permanent injunctions on. And I believe that the one of the two that was open, which was Timeshare Exit Team, that Dave Ramsey went out and publicly supported and made about $8 million off of supporting. I think they have announced that they've gone out of business. And I think that the industry, it's public information. I think pretty much all of the major players have an open case against Wesley Financial. And I think that the same thing is happening in the timeshare exit space that's happening in the timeshare space. And there's a lot of consolidation as these companies are getting shut down. And there's going to end up being, 2 or 3, 4 key players out there. Again, in my opinion, the branded companies, they don't really want to get in litigation if they can help it, because they don't want to jeopardize the brand risk that can come with it, because it can get a little dirty in there slinging mud. But the fact of the matter is the best example I can give, our audience is this. If you owned a block in New York City, and you can pick any one you want between 56th and 57th, between 5th and 6th, that block, right? And there were 200 drug dealers on that block that only stayed on that block and sold drugs. And all of a sudden you hired, 200 police officers, and all they did was stay on that block. Okay. Well, they probably weren't going to put the criminals out of business. They probably are going to continue to sell drugs. But what are they going to do? They're going to move to another block. Okay. So if you inflict pain and it costs them money to steal from your company, therefore they will go to a softer target. Right. And that's what we've seen. So, everybody's got their own philosophy about it. I think most of the companies out there today don't want to fight these all the way to trial. I think what they really are looking for, is they're looking for what they call a no-fly zone settlement. And really what that simply means is they want the exit company to say, I can stay in the business and I'm admitting no wrongdoing and I'm going to do whatever I want when I want, but I promise to never touch your customer again. And if they get that, I think they fold the tent and go home, where I kind of hung in there and, want a little bit more pound of flesh than that.
At Resort Trades, we were really 150% on your side. And Resort Trades never has accepted any requests to advertise, of course. we just wouldn't do that. So thank you for your efforts.
Well, look, it's not just me. I mean, there was a team of people behind me that really did all the heavy lifting. But the fact of the matter is, if you talking about earlier getting those letters and seeing what is happening to people, I mean, it's very, very sad what these people are doing. I mean, they're coming in and they're preying on these members. And the reason this timeshare customer bought the product to begin with is because they wanted a free gift. And then they saw something they liked, and so they signed up. So they still have that same DNA. So now that DNA gets them to go to a timeshare exit presentation because they still want that free steak dinner. Well, then they get in there and they're lied to, and these fear tactics are put into them. And all of a sudden, the next thing you know, they're getting $10, $15, $20,000 from these poor people. And they think that they're doing a service for them. But the reality of it is it's an illusory business. There is no service, because there is no way they can get them out of the contract, but for the company that has the contract allowing it to happen. And so in essence, what they're doing is they're letting them sit on the back burner and go through a default process. And so not only did they pay them $15,000 or $20,000, but now all of a sudden they go to co-sign for their daughter, their freshman or sophomore year of college, to get a lease to get into an apartment, and they get declined. And they're like, what in the world? And they look, and what's happened is their credit's just getting ruined and ruined and ruined, because they had no idea that they are just going through a default process by not paying. And they thought they were paying $15,000, $20,000 for a service, and all they did was run them through a default, ruin their credit. They could have done that on their own for free. I mean,
Yeah. It is so crazy. Let me just ask as a kind of my final question. Let's bring it back to you. I wanted to hear a little bit more about Mike Flaskey Entertainment, and also what your plans are for the future personally.
Oh, well, thank you. Well, I mean, I'll go backwards. We were blessed to sell Diamond Resorts to a wonderful company in HGV. And I'm so happy for our members, and I'm so happy for our team members that made the transition over. They're in great hands with Mark and his senior team over there. And so I'm thrilled. But when you sell a company, it's customary that you have a non-compete. And so I'm not able to, run another company in our industry for just a little bit longer. And so anyway, I have started my own company, and it's Mike Flaskey Entertainment. And we started the golf tournament that is so successful now, which was just last week, the Hilton Grand Vacations Tournament of Champions. And that model has just taken off like wildfire. The combination of professional golf and celebrities, the TV ratings and the fan experience in these type events are just off the charts. And so everybody wants them. And so I went on the board of a company called Invited, which was formerly Club Corp, and they own about 260 private golf courses around the country, and about 50 of these city clubs. And so they asked me, they said, look, we're in the golf space. We saw what you did at Diamond. Would you consider doing an event for me? And so we created the Invited Celebrity Classic for them, which is very similar to the Hilton Grand Vacations Tournament of Champions, in the sense that I bring 40 celebrities in, and we pair them up with the PGA Tour champions as our professional partner, instead of I used a partnership in professional golf with the LPGA to build the HGV Tournament of Champions. And so that's taken off like wildfire. We have our second event coming up the week of April 17th through the 23rd in Dallas. So be sure everybody to tune in for that. And then the music side of things has exploded. I mentioned earlier, it's not just in the hospitality business, but in many different businesses. People are looking to, do more for their customer, do more for their team members. And music is a great way to have a reward and recognition event or to give back. So we booked about 35 private musical shows in 2022. And most of those are relationships that I built with artists, while CEO at Diamond over that period of time that I was at Diamond, we probably did 500 or 600, private shows. And so these artists have remained loyal, and so we do a lot of business with those same artists, around the country, really around the globe. We did 20 shows all over Mexico last year in 2022. So a lot of exciting stuff between music and golf, and we created an online store. Everybody should check it out. It's called shopmikeflaskey.com, and we have our golf line, we have our outdoor line, and that's doing incredibly well. And I'm not necessarily sure it's because of me, but I think it's because of my initials, MF.
Well, you are blessed. Is there anything that you wanted to add before we let you go reluctantly?
Look, I just have always appreciated you and your positive energy, and I've always appreciated, the trades and what you all stand for. And, you've been doing this for a long time, and, I have said no, to every other request. I did one keynote deal out in Las Vegas a few months back, but outside of that, I've not granted any interviews. But I thought that this was the right platform. I thought that you, given all you've done for the industry, should have the opportunity to have this.
Thank you.
It's an honor to be here, and I appreciate you, and thank you for having me.
Well, you're very welcome, and the honor is all ours. And we wish you all the luck in the world, and can't wait to see what your next big will be.
Thank you very much. And I hope you all have.
Well, thank you. You too.